Chris Cote. What a day for the Nothing Personal audience, for all of you and for me. It's a sit down, and we found him. Chris Cote, welcome to Nothing Personal. This is your first time doing this with us.
I'm very excited, David. I don't know what to expect. I've got no prep on this. Usually when I do an interview, I like to be prepped, and none today for me.
Do you do interviews often?
No, never. It's actually as awkward as I feel in this space. Like what we do, talking in front of mics. I'm a good behind the scenes guy. Even if you need me to like start a segment, when I'm like the number 2 guy and I feel like I'm going to be talked to a lot, a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to crush it today for you.
What prep would you have liked me to have given you? Would you have liked a list of all the questions?
In hindsight, it would have been nice.
If you were preparing to interview yourself, you would imagine the questions that would be asked that you would ask. So, for example, you'd probably be asked about your father.
Yes.
You'd probably be asked about ESPN.
Yep.
And the exit from ESPN.
Yep.
And the relationship with Dan.
Yep.
You might even be asked, do you have anything that you do with Samson off the air?
Which I have.
So it just seems like the prep that you
unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
Because I know about everything you're going to ask me about.
Which is why I don't want to waste my time or yours.
I like the idea of you asking me about, like, science. Then I would have needed some prep.
The first thing I have is, can we do this calculation that is based on pre-algebra?
Okay.
I mean,
I'm following.
No, you're not.
I'm playing the yes game. I was just like, oh, shit, this is over my head, but I'm just going to say yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that to you. Why would you? Now I have to do one.
No, let's not, please.
4e plus 8.
God, did I hate that?
4e plus 8 equals 24.
I was more of like a trig guy. Give me like angles, shapes, like that's what I can deal with.
Terrible. That's geometry?
Yes. I was better at geometry and trig, like the algebra 2s and the letters and 7-8, like that. I mean, 7C, and no, not for me.
I understand.
Yeah.
I want to explain to people what you do.
Yeah.
You have an interesting character that you play in the Le Batard universe. And the reason I wanted to sit down with you and have our audience be introduced to you in this way is that you're not normally in a chair talking like this.
Right.
You have become the character who is actually conducting the show as the executive producer more often than you're not.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, every time you're doing Dan's show now, you do it from that chair.
Yes, and it's a different chair. It's, I would say, out of my comfort zone, but I'm getting more comfortable with it as time goes on.
What part of being in charge scares you? Disappointing Dan or disappointing the audience?
Both, because Dan is like, that's Dan's best feature during the show is he is the audience. Like, you can tell on Dan's face how the show's going a lot of times. So I would say that's the same answer. I'm worried about both of those things. I get a little overwhelmed when people, make it seem like I'm doing this all by myself, being the EP. Like, I am the guy sitting in the chair, but there are 4 to 5 people that are kind of doing the job. I'm just kind of the face of it on the air, but, there's a lot to that job, and I'm not doing all of it. And I haven't even really been technically named EP yet, but if I ever switch jobs or switch companies and I need to put it on a resume, it's going on there that I'm the EP, even though I technically haven't been named it yet.
So you don't keep your resume updated at all times?
No.
Interesting.
I have my resume, but no, like I have not put stuff from like this company on it yet. Like I'll see.
I feel as though that's something you should do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a doc. I could do it in an hour if you needed me to.
It actually has nothing to do with the reality that we've all been fired in our lives, and we've all had to adjust. That's part of life.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing in general to have your resume updated.
Keep it fresh.
You just have no idea what the day could bring.
Yeah, I mean,
hey, can I get your resume?
Like I said, the resume's it could be ready within an hour. Like I have a resume, but I haven't put all the Le Batard show stuff on it because I plan on being here a while.
So that's just my point.
Right.
You just never know.
That's true.
And now that you're taking on more responsibility, the answer could be, oh, I think he's hit his ceiling, and someone could come calling for you.
Ceilings get a bad rap. I'm okay with just reaching the ceiling and just chilling. I feel like this need to always go higher. Like I'm okay.
It's interesting that you say that because the whole purpose of the shows that we all do is to always get bigger, grow more, be more entertaining, attract a bigger, different audience.
Yeah, but I can't think of it that way. Like, I just want to make fun, interesting content and, like, let the social media people who are good at this stuff, I mean, like, I can't worry about, we have 7 more listeners than yesterday. Like, I'm just like, what is Dan happy? Is the show good? And that's where my focus is. And then, yes, I want to hear all the data on how the audience is growing and what we can do to help that, but it's like I said, if I'm focusing on all those things, it takes away from trying to focus on just doing the show.
Is your ear different from Dan's? Is there ever a time when you're doing the show where you think something is going horribly and you look at Dan and you read his face and say, oh, wait a minute, I may not have the right ear for this or the sensibility?
The funny thing about that is back before I was in this main chair, I feel like I didn't have a sense. And there would be times where I think something's hilarious and Dan is on a different train of thought. Now, as I've gotten into this chair and my life is just kind of like keep Dan happy, I feel like I'm whatever he feels, I feel. And I didn't feel that way when I was in the back row. Like now in this chair, the way he stares at me when he's not feeling like, something's a little off, like I feel that so like I used to be able to react to it. I would always make jokes at it from the back row. Now in this seat, I'm like hyper vigilant and I'm like, holy shit, how can I fix that face? Well, he's making a face, I need to fix it.
So your career path, I want to understand how you got to that chair.
Yeah.
Because you say back row, which has such a pejorative connotation, and it shouldn't, because the back row inside the shipping container of one of the biggest shows in the country,
right?
It's a very important seat to have.
It's just a different character. Not that it's characters, but it's just a different responsibility.
It's a different role.
Different responsibilities.
So when you were growing up in a household with a famous father, Greg Cote is famous in Miami.
Yep.
I would say there are times when his national brand, it's pretty big now, being a part of the Le Batard universe, more so than being a Herald columnist.
Right, when he broke Dan's wedding, I mean, that was his biggest beat ever.
That was a very funny one. Which that was not a bit, which is interesting. People get confused.
People still think it was to this day.
People get confused about what's real and what's not, and Dan loves trafficking in that ambiguity.
He does.
And it's an interesting thing, but I want to go back pre-Dan. Yeah. I want to go back to you and growing up with a father who has access to sporting events, who is what some would argue a really cool job next to being the athlete. He was athlete adjacent. So were you the coolest kid in class?
Everyone was always asking me about sports things. That hasn't changed to this day because of my job now. Like people think I'm like some fantasy expert, some baseball expert because my dad was a writer. Yes, I was always getting what are the Marlins going to do this offseason? I'm like a 12-year-old in 6th grade, and I'm like, I have no idea. My dad doesn't know. But it's like I have to act like I know just because it's cool. But yeah, my dad has always been the cool dad and the funny dad. My dad was calling my games. I never wrote as well as my dad, as you can hear the way I speak. I don't write. I didn't get the writing gene from him, but I always had the sports gene. The funny thing, you mentioned tickets. We got more tickets from my mom growing up than we did from my dad.
What did your mom?
My mom's a lawyer, and she had a firm, and they had season tickets to everything down here. So I was always going to Dolphins games and Marlins games. I went to all the 97, 03 World Series games through my mom's firm season tickets. So I was always getting this access, and everyone was always like, man, your dad gets you these best tickets. I'm like, it's actually my mom's law firm.
So many people actually don't get great seats.
That's what I mean. Like they
get to the press box.
People think media just get handed tickets. It's like, oh, can I just get tickets to the game because your dad works for the Miami Herald? I'm like, not how this works, guys. He could ask for tickets, but he's probably gonna have to pay for them.
It's certainly in the postseason.
Yeah,
you don't get postseason tickets for free.
People think that they just hand them out to writers.
One of the great misconceptions, isn't it funny growing up with someone like Greg Cote, thinking that all of a sudden you're the coolest person around, and then you have to live up to that?
Yes, that's what I mean.
So people say, hey, can we go to the game? And you're like, oh my God, I got to go on Game Time.
Yeah, you're on Dunkin'. You're at Dunkin' Donuts, and they're like, oh, but what do you think of Joe Girardi? And he's just like, I don't freaking know, but he's got to give an opinion just because he's Greg Cote, the sports writer.
And that bleeds down to you.
Yeah, it does. It does. My friends, I get texts regularly, like looking for fantasy advice. Like I have some sort of edge in knowing which running back's going to score a touchdown on Sunday.
Has that changed? I wasn't going to talk about this, but fantasy advice versus gambling to bet the game versus playing fantasy versus just tell me anything that I can't know from normal people.
It's one of the more, we work for, a gambling company. It's just one of the more annoying things in life is people thinking that this job gives us some sort of
edge
on what's going to happen and predicting the future.
We're the least of everything to make sure that's not the case.
I'm always just cutting them right at the feet. Like, no, guys, I don't know. I have no clue. I'm down $200 this week.
On DraftKings, on the DraftKings app.
Of course.
Code Samson. Or Code Dan.
Yeah, but I was up last week, so it's about even. We're doing well.
Everybody says that.
That's what you say, David.
Do you know that casinos in Vegas or gambling companies, their carpeting would be terrible, their lighting would be terrible, the buildings would be short if you went on what everyone says about how they're doing?
People are constantly lying about their
I'm
gambling.
about even.
It's kind of like with, like, you know, back in the day, like the rule of three with men would always overstate how many women they've been with. It's kind of like that in gambling. If I'm telling you that I'm even in gambling, I'm down.
You divide by 3 for men and multiply by 3 for women.
It's the same
and
thing
for gambling, just automatically increase the loss.
Whatever they say they are, it's half that. If it's good, it's half as good. If it's bad, it's
twice as bad.
It's like
now that's math.
Yeah. Science, even some might say. Another texter in the show.
No, but I'm actually
texted
going
you
to
the other
tell you
day.
this is fascinating. I'm live doing a show, so I'm going to hang up. I'm live, Kira, literally live. She never calls.
Yeah.
Now the rule is, if she calls again,
Yes.
then there's an emergency.
Right. I mean,
Do you have that rule at all? Because you're on the air. The 2-call rule.
Yes, with my wife will just text me generally if it's between the times of recording. But yes, if I see a call from my wife, if it's during show, I know she's not calling me, so I will honestly sometimes, if I see she called, I'll step out.
So
or
it's
I'll
a
text her
1-call
in.
rule.
In show.
What if it's like a butt dial?
That's just never. She'll have a text that says, "Sorry, didn't mean to call you." Like that's how rare it is for my wife to call me in like a recording window. I would probably just answer or try to step out.
I got the 2-call rule.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I'm going to decline once. Second time, no, I'll stop recording. Because you could be held hostage.
Yeah. What would you do in this spot if, like, the person that you care about was like, I'm held hostage right now? How would you help? Like, what would be your first step?
What's the number? Like, what are we talking? Let's talk turkey. Like, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
And then I got to finish the show with you.
And
I'll be right back to you.
Hostage situations.
Kidnapping.
Seem intense.
I've not gotten the kidnapping call. I've gotten the I got a bad grade call. I've gotten the I got hurt call. I lost a tooth call. I've gotten the boyfriend broke up with me call. I've gotten the things are bad in college call.
I'm trying to think of all these different, like, robberies and, like, what would I like to be, like, a witness for? Like, I feel like, obviously I don't want any of these things to happen, but I feel like being at a bank and
during
safely,
a robbery?
Obviously I don't want to be, like, near the teller, but, like, if I'm, like, just, like, in the corner of the bank so the guy's never really even acknowledged, like, that would be wild.
What about the ricochet?
Yeah. I'm getting low as soon as he gets in.
You have to be behind someone else.
Yeah.
By definition, but it can always come off the back. Yeah, I don't have any interest. I can watch Heat if I want to see a robbery.
I went to one time, I was in, I think it was Toronto, and I was in, like, a 7-Eleven type store, and some, like, homeless person was losing their mind in there. That was, like, the closest I've ever seen where, like, they were, like, on the cop. The register person was on the phone with the cops, and this, like, homeless person was, like, throwing stuff, and I was
weapon? What was the weapon? A can of peas or a ding-dong?
It was like, yeah, they wanted, like, a Yoo-hoo and some candy, and it was just, like, the candy ended up getting flung. That was the closest I've ever come to seeing something crazy in person.
Did you panic?
No, the homeless person was small enough where I thought, like, me and this other guy were kind of standing there of, like, I'm not going to do anything.
Peacocked?
There was just a moment of, like, if this person, like, there was no weapons that I saw. So, like, if they try to, like, get physical, I think we can, like, me and this guy could get the person off. Like, I was prepared to almost help. I thought about being prepared to help.
It's got to be a size thing because you're people don't know this because you sit down for a living.
Yes.
You're very tall.
Yes, I'm 5'11".
You are not 5'11". What are you really?
I'm 5. I've always said 5'11".
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I had you at 6'3".
No, wow, thank you.
That's a perspective issue for me then.
Mike Ryan is like 6'2", 6'3". I'm shorter than Mike and Billy. We're a tall show.
Very tall.
Yeah, like,
except for Stu Gatz.
Outside of Stu Gatz, I'm like the shortest one, and I'm like around 6 foot, just under. So yeah, it's
because for me, I would never get involved when
right.
you see things in New York all the time, and you're asked this question: if you saw a problem, what would you do? And I would say I'd call 911.
Right.
I'm not going to go up and break up a fight. Like, what would be the use of that?
I would never. If it's just like a fight, I'm never getting involved.
Well, you just said you'd rip the man without an address.
Remember what I said though? Like this person was like it was like a skinny like if this is like a jacked person, I'm scared and I'm calling 911. This was someone I was.
Floyd
bigger
Merriweather
than.
Is not a big guy.
Yeah.
And he could beat the absolute crap out of somebody.
That's true.
You're just going to judge a book by its cover.
This houseless person did not give off Floyd Mayweather punching skills, but I could have been wrong.
I'm just saying it's risky.
Yeah.
And at 5'5", I'm not taking the risk. What you're saying is at 5'11", you're willing to take the risk.
Did you see that hockey guy Biz who like got like fought like 6 guys in the street? Like this, he works for TNT. He's a hockey player. No, he's like a jacked former hockey player, but he goes to this restaurant, Houston's, and the manager was 6 drunk golfers were like attacking the manager, and Biz walked up and was like, "Hey, I know these people. They work hard. Get away." And these 6 golfers like attacked Biz in the street, 6-on-1. All the surveillance is out. He's like a national hero now because he stepped in. Like everyone's applauding him as like, even though he could have died, he almost beat the crap out of him outside.
Yeah, it's not me.
No, not me either.
I don't want to do that. And growing up in New York City, I grew up differently than you did. I assume that you grew up in a suburb.
Yes.
In Florida.
Yep.
In Broward.
Yep. Plantation.
In Plantation. So that's where my kids grew up. In Plantation.
I don't know if I've ever told you this. I used to see at Broadway Bagel. Not Broadway Bagel. Is it Broadway Bagel on Broward Boulevard?
Right on Broward.
Like Nob Hill. And I used to see you. I think I've seen you before I knew you. So this was just me, like as a Marlins fan. Ooh, that's David Samson. I think Mike Hill I've seen there. Like that was my spot.
We all lived around there.
I used to see you guys. I think multiple times I've seen Mike Hill for sure. You at least once, just in there getting a Marlins
because
like,
Mike is very tall.
Yeah.
And you're like, is that Samson? God,
no,
he's small.
I mean,
in real life.
I knew Mike Hill and David Samson at that. I'm a Marlins fan. I knew you guys. So I was like, yeah, that was.
I almost got run over in Plantation many times running.
Oh.
And I would run on Nob Hill. I would run on
What's
Broward
up with
Boulevard,
people that run on the street? Go on the sidewalk.
No, I can't run on the sidewalk.
Why?
It hurts your knees.
Is that why people do it? It's like, I'm always like thinking they're running against traffic, which makes sense.
You have to run against traffic.
That makes sense. But I'm always like, there's a sidewalk right there. It's the knee. It's the.
Well, you run in a bike lane. Also, sidewalks are uneven.
Oh.
And so you can trip, you can break your ankle, you can tear your knee.
I've always
so
wondered.
You're supposed to run on the street.
That's annoying though, because now as I'm driving, I have to like do a little thing where I'm veering slightly to the right. Now I'm more into this lane, and
you shouldn't have to veer. We're not in your lane.
These
we
runners.
are right in the running lane.
But in my neighborhood, there's no like running lane, and like there's
close
people,
to the
and
curb.
then they always veer into the grass. It's like they do that thing where they're running on the road, but then when the car comes, they go on the grass for a second. It's just this is my own personal problems, but
I get very scared about running these days because of texting.
Yeah, exactly.
One little look at your phone, and I could be run over.
Even driving, I'm always like looking at the car behind me, and I'm like, it looks like they're texting. And I'll like switch lanes to get away from somebody behind me that looks like they're on their phone. Because if I go up to this red light, they might just plow right into me.
Is it just me, or every time I may be the only one? There's 2 things that come to mind. One, when I'm on a plane. I'm looking around to see, will I want to be on an island with any of these people? Like, who will be really cool if this plane goes down and we're stuck for years? Like, is there anyone?
Who would I like? Me and you, we could survive. I do it more of like, and this is a morbid thing, of I pep myself up. I get myself up of like, this plane's not going down because this doesn't look like that guy doesn't look like he's dying today. Like I start just like assessing, like does this person look like someone that might die early? That does that. Like, and then I'll be like, oh shit, this might go down because this guy, to me, I don't know what I'm doing there. I don't know what the characteristics look wise of someone that looks like they're gonna live or die today.
I'm looking around to just see people who can help me get food and who can help me stay interested if I'm stuck on an island. And the other thing that I do, which I don't know why I'm even thinking of this right now. It wasn't even planned. On a 2-lane road.
Yep.
I'm picturing every time a car is coming toward me that it's going to veer right into me.
I'm like as soon as we're about to pass, I'm hugging the right
and
side.
Planning like can I get right fast enough if I see him coming right at me.
My dad in Ireland, I believe, crashed his rental car because it was like some tight 2-lane road and there was like walls. So it's like you didn't even have like a space to move over. It was like you either had to hit this wall or you had to be super close to the whizzing by car. So he like hit his mirror. He scraped. I mean, he was playing on the safe side. He's like, I don't want to get hit head on, so I'm going to lean. Yeah, and I think they had to pay for damages on a
Picturing Greg driving on the wrong side of the road makes me laugh.
Right, because this is Ireland, so they were probably on. It was probably the left side of his car that he messed up.
It's possible that he was driving on the wrong side,
right? Because of there,
which is why he crashed. That there was literally a car coming at him because he was on the wrong side of the road.
Man.
Just saying, it's not impossible.
Ireland.
I want to go back to something we were touched on before, your career, and started at ESPN, and you got
technically
involved.
Started locally with Dan's show. I had just got on as an intern for about a year. I was honestly about to quit. Like I had interned, not getting paid, a couple times a week, just sitting in the corner, logging the show, answering phone calls. And then it was just like I was like, just what do I want to do with my life? I don't know if this is going to be anything. I don't know if there's ever going to be room for me. And I remember like texting Billy, like, I don't know. And he was just like, I think I heard like there's meetings with ESPN. Like Billy kind of gave me the hang in there.
Get drafted.
I think that we're close. And then it couldn't have been perfect timing. Like when the ESPN thing came, they had more space to make me full time. So it was just like I was made full time with ESPN. So like that, I thank Billy to this day for just kind of giving me the.
Do you thank him though?
I have. Like he knows about this. I probably don't say it enough, but yeah, it was because after doing a year, I'm just like trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. I'm like, should I be doing this? Like. Because part of me thought, you just like this show. Like, is this actually going to be something you're going to be, like, or do you just want to sit in the corner and listen to the show every week? So I was, like, getting into that, can this be something? And luckily, and I always had Dan in my ear telling me it couldn't be anything. Like, from, like, the moment he let me intern on the show.
Trying to take care of his father.
Right, but he didn't want to
son.
overpromise. So he was just like, there's no, local radio. He's like, there's not a ton of money in this. Like, this isn't a career. And I just kind of stuck it out and got really lucky. And then we went to ESPN and got full time and started talking on air. And it just.
You think your dad ever said to Dan, you got to get rid of my son? I cannot have him thinking that this is a career.
I think my dad was more like don't feel obligated. Like, I think my dad was more on the side to Dan of like, give him a chance, and if there's no room for him, like, just be frank with, like, don't feel the need to keep him around because he's, like, my dad wanted, and that's why in that first, like, 6-8 months I was with the show, I really tried to, like, just be annoying with ideas and, like, I didn't want, everyone's always, like, nepotism, you don't deserve this, so I was, like, overstepping my boundaries just to be eager, and I pitch ideas, and
imagine
they were terrible
a team
ideas. I would love to look back at like the emails that I sent like Mike and Billy the first like 3 months I was with the show of just like stupid pitches of like, hey, we could do this, we could do this.
Do you not have any of those?
I'd have to look. I haven't looked in a long time.
So what I have is when I started, I was 31 years old when I started working for Jeffrey. At the time was my stepfather, and I was
with
running
a lot of the same.
Oh, of course.
Insecurities.
And so I was calling 7 a.m. meetings every day. I wanted everyone in the office early. I was going to meet with sales and marketing and finance because I was going to show them I may be young, I may be the son, but man, I can do this.
Wow, 7 a.m. meetings.
Oh, but I would bring breakfast.
There's no Zoom at this point either.
Oh, no, this is 1999.
No camera off Zoom meetings.
There is nothing. Everyone's in person in the dead of winter in Montreal when it's dark and freezing cold, and it was French.
How long did it take you to like feel like to lose the sense of like I need to prove myself here and to like actually, because I finally have reached the point where I know that I've like put the time in and the work in to like deserve to be here, like whether or not I got the opportunity because of how I got it. So like I'm very secure now with like the work I do here and what I contribute. But it took a while.
I'm dying
for me
to know how you got to an end point because I have never.
Well, I'm still insecure. I'm not saying like I still have my moments, and like the comments definitely hit me sometimes. Like they needle me sometimes. When I see a tweet about that type of stuff. I'm not saying I'm impervious to pain with that, but I do feel that I belong to be here at this point.
So I don't want to lose the feeling because it's my fuel. And so I'm scared of ever feeling as though someone's going to think that I belong. And after 18 years running a team and after the new career that I've created for myself that has nothing to do, I still feel it every day.
Right.
And so therefore I am actually scared of getting to a place where I would dream. Dan dreams for me to be in that place. Yeah. But I don't think I'll ever get there.
Yeah, I might just be having a good day. The more I think about it, like I think I came off too overconfident right there. I don't.
No, it's evolved.
I'm making it seem, but yeah, there are days I still have my insecurities, and there are days, with all our crew, like as our crew has expanded, that's what motivates you now. You see these young guys coming in here, and they're eager. And
they want your job so badly.
That's what it's like. So that honestly has been a good sense of, like, not motivating, but just like. You can't get content around here.
Is it strange working with your dad?
Not at this point. Do
you think he's funny?
I do. I think he's hilarious. I think
when the camera's not on, also.
Yes, but he also frustrates me a lot, and I know that I get overly frustrated with him, like kind of the way Dan does. Like, and I hate. There's been times where I'll like just like go past. I'll say something to him, like cutting him, and I'm just like. Damn, that was the son, and like that wasn't good content. Like I hate those moments where he kind of like looks at me, and I'm just like, that wasn't even funny. I was just being like a son to him, and those moments where I just need to, because he's cooking usually. Like the audience loves him.
Those moments happen at a Friday night dinner. Or are you talking about on the air?
I'm talking about on the air. Like we're all like totally undercut him with something where it's just like that's only would be said by his son. You know what I mean? Where it's like he might be cooking on something, and I like just feel this need to like undercut it, and it's just like, oh, that was. me just being a brat.
What's the threshold? Because I was in a family situation as well. I'm dying to know your threshold because then I'll tell you mine. Where you're looking out and you're saying, oh, I understand that I'm going to hear from my mother or siblings on this.
The funny thing is with my dad, the stuff I'm hearing from, it's usually like, thank you for saying that. Like, I rarely...
You're complimented
yes,
for
like
the violation of privacy that is so pervasive in this show.
Yeah.
You are complimented
I've
by
always
it.
done a good
Oy vey.
I've never had something where it's like, this is legitimately, I can't believe you said this on air. Like, I have a good governor for what I should say and what I shouldn't say. So like, I have not fallen on the wrong side of, like, where my mom is like, I can't believe you said that. Actually, you know what? I just thought of it. One time with my mom, it has nothing to do with my dad. I said that my parents had a puppy, Jumpin' Charlie, and every time you go over the house, he pisses everywhere. It's like that's his way. Like, when he gets excited, he pisses. So there was a time where my parents' house smelled like piss. And my mom hated that I said that. She's like, I have people that I work with. Like,
it's a terrible reflection of her ability to be a homemaker.
The idea that I implied her house, which it did for a couple months. Like, you walked in and you smelled dog and piss. But she didn't like. That's the one time where my mom was like, why are you saying my house smells like piss? Nothing with my dad, just the cleanliness of her house.
So proprietary, given the fact that she was the one who gave you all the tickets. She's a high-powered lawyer working for a firm that has tickets everywhere. But you really want to get to her. Don't beat her in a case. The way to get to her is to say publicly, to somehow impugn her ability to both keep a home, which is a full-time job, and to be a big-time lawyer, which is
Greg's
not.
wife.
No one else does that. Oh, which is a totally separate.
Yeah.
Dream for anybody.
And I hope she listens to this, and she generally does kind of listen to the stuff that I'm on. Not as much tickets these days. The firm they pivoted to, let's not give it to Erlene's son. They actually use it for what it's intended for now with clients and stuff. Like, there was like 10 years ago, like a changing.
Were they Marlins ticket holders in the new ballpark?
Not in the new ballpark.
Unreal.
Not in the new ball. I think the one year we were was the All-Star, because you guys tricked us into
17?
You guys tricked us into thinking that we needed to be season ticket
a good
holders.
one, isn't it?
Me and Billy to this day, like, we bought like 4 each, and then like we got to the All-Star game, and my buddies is like, I got tickets for $200, and I'm like, I spent $4,000 on. I spent $4,000 just to get access to these Marlins. Yeah.
One of the great things that you can do, and it's done everywhere.
Right.
It's done by every team. This is not. Don't make this like a Marlins thing.
Panthers are doing this now with season tickets. Like, commit. Like,
they won the cup.
Right.
I mean, they're going to milk that as they should for years.
Yeah.
And the Heat, don't let the Heat off the hook.
Yeah.
The Heat, when they're doing their season ticket drive on their run with LeBron and with Bosh and with Wade, you want tickets to the playoffs to watch the Big Three, you're buying season tickets next year.
It's smart. It's smart business. But
so
it was just, that one was a fun
Too
one.
often you accuse me of doing things in this show that very many people do.
No, here.
It's just fun.
A lot of people are.
It's just me. It's just not just me. I don't even want to take the credit.
Yeah.
It's for the brilliance of these moves that somehow get more money out of the customer, which everybody's trying to do. It's called an algorithm.
Right.
It's the job of every company to maximize what you will spend.
You hear that, Metal Arc?
That's exactly right. But so it's the same with Metal Arc. It was the same at ESPN.
Yep.
You're doing a job. You're trying to value yourself.
Yep.
And then you decide whether you are getting the right valuation, the right appreciation. Sometimes companies will give you affirmation with a title change.
Yep.
And not a raise.
And sometimes ESPN will just let you go on a Friday and not
there
even
you go.
tell Dan. And then I'm gone.
Gone. Did you have to clear? Did you have a desk?
No, I had my spot in the shipping container. Then there was nothing cleared. I was on the phone with Dan within a couple hours where I felt that I wasn't actually going to be let go. We're talking about when I got let go from ESPN for the people that don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Dan called me within an hour and was like, this is not going to, had no idea about this. This is not going to stand. I'll hire you as my assistant if I need to. So I felt pretty secure quickly, but it was a weird call to get on a Friday afternoon.
Is that the only time you've ever been fired in your life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember to this day getting the call, and it's like one of the high ups at ESPN. I just laid back.
How high was your firer? This is a very important.
Yeah, no, she was like the head of like programming. Like,
that's pretty high.
Well, I at ESPN there's probably 17 heads of programming, but she was like our main.
How many levels above you? That's really the way to look at it.
I would have said 3 levels.
That's
above me.
actually a good number.
Yeah, because like there was Mike above me, and then there was Liam. I don't know, I'm saying random names, but then like yeah, and then her. Like probably around there, like 3 or 4 levels up.
So the difficulty of the decision when you are terminated by someone just one level above you, it means that it was not a tough decision. Like it's just see you later. You're gone. Like Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross type of thing.
I think they knew that they hadn't told Dan.
That's why it goes 3 levels.
They were like, yeah.
Now, if you had been this public person with a high salary, then you're talking 4+ levels.
Now we're talking
would be
like
doing that.
Skipper's calling.
This is how it went. That's exactly right.
Well, hello there, Chris.
We're gonna have to.
Sorry to inform
go.
you that your services will
Never
no longer
say sorry.
be. I do believe that you've been a great employee for us, and I always turn him into the guy from.
And enjoy your 2-week severance.
I assume he doesn't listen. I just live under the understanding that Skipper's never heard my impression of him.
I would agree that if it's done anywhere on the show, then I would say.
What about this one? Am I safe here?
You're maybe less safe here than on your show, but I would have to find out.
I do believe I listen to Nothing Personal every morning. I do wake up with David. I wake up with David.
Boy, he does not wake up with me. So Dan calls you and says, you're not going to even have one day on your own. Wasn't there a part of you that said, my God, it's totally back to all my insecurities, all the nepotism. I'm about to be rehired as an assistant when I was let go by ESPN. This is going to get some attention.
Yes, all of that came back. And I even remember like trying to give Dan an out. Like I was just like, do you want this? And like you just feel bad now? Like I'm like you have done so much for me. Like if this is it, I'm good. Like
it's a hell of a run.
I was trying to I wanted because I felt bad. I didn't want like me to be the reason that we ended up leaving ESPN. Now I will say, I've said this analogy when talking about this. Dan's marriage with ESPN was not going well. If we're looking at that like a marriage, and I'm the kid. And then, whatever happened with the incident with the kid is what was the final straw for this divorce. Like, people like to say we left ESPN because of what happened with me. It was not going well. Like, Dan's...
straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly. It was the last thing in a line of a lot of things that were pulling them apart. So, I always push back on, Billy will make the joke. Like, we left... I don't get free Disney anymore because of Chris. It's a funny joke, but it's, if I was not involved with this, we would have probably still left ESPN at some point.
Is straw that broke the camel's back an old expression so people don't use that? Have you ever heard that?
I've heard it. I know it as an expression. I have no idea the origins of it.
That
straw.
So it's funny. So
it must be like old-time camels, right? And
you can't break a camel's back.
Right.
Imagine putting one little piece of hay on a back and then the back breaks. It's impossible.
It's one of the best sayings in terms of you get it. You hear it and you're like, I can visualize.
It's like an onomatopoeia.
It's like I picture like a feather floating down,
and
not a straw. It's almost,
in the wall.
I almost like it as the feather that broke the camel's back because it's like the camel's back is so filled right now, but one more feather falls on it and it's like collapses.
There's a game that I used to play as a kid called Pickup Sticks, which I'm sure it's not a thing anymore, although it comes in a little cylinder and you have to put sticks on top of each other. It graduated into a game called Jenga with a
I've never heard anyone call it Jenga.
It's the thing that you build with wooden.
It's Jenga. I know exactly.
No.
David.
Is it?
It's the 3-on-3, like 3 wood.
Yes, you have to keep going, and if you can't put one on, and the whole thing falls.
I think we're about to go viral here.
Jenga.
We're gonna go viral here.
I believe
he's wrong, right, guys?
Oh, I am wrong. I've always called it Jenga.
It's Jenga. Jenga.
I always thought it was a soft J.
Because when it's about to fall, it's Jenga.
That's not what anyone says when you're acting like a scary Halloween person.
I'm telling when
no one says
when the Jenga tower is like leaning and it's like, oh wow, next touch it's going down. People will be like Jenga, and they're not like
people
Jenga.
I play with.
People in Miami probably call it Jenga.
Maybe that's
GQ? Jenga? No, it's our video guy.
Coca hates me. He just absolutely.
Why? Because of the Jenga thing or the references?
He thinks that I somehow don't know anything.
Well, the Jenga thing is
That is a game.
I've never heard anyone say Jenga.
Okay, I don't want to spend another minute on it because we're going to run out of time, but I'm almost positive that's how it's marketed, though I don't recall a commercial for it.
I got to hear one.
But it's spelled with a J.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
J-E.
Can we put a commercial
That's not
in here?
a G.
Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, every person I've ever heard say it has said Jenga.
what letter does that sound like to you?
Like if it was spelled Jenga, what would it be?
If it's pronounced Jenga,
Right.
is that not a G?
Yeah, that would be a G.
So I'm not positive you guys have this right.
How do you spell jet?
When you're a jet, J-E-T.
Yeah, but it's a J. Jet. Jenga.
So listen, so after ESPN, it's not even a day. Where were we? I'm totally thrown off. I wanted to do transition.
We were talking about
Transition?
me, my getting let go. Not fired. That's another thing. Everyone's always like,
What do
you
you
got fired
call
from
it?
ESPN. Let go. Because like that's the one thing I remember.
Canned?
That's the one thing I remember from that conversation. This was not performance based. This was a money thing. This was every show was getting cuts.
This was a layoff.
Yeah, every show, every department was getting cuts, and you're the.
Did you know enough to ask for severance?
I was given
a package?
That. I was given that.
By George Clooney?
It was. I just remember in the phone call. I don't remember exactly how much it was. I just remember her saying, "We're gonna, a couple months." It was like pay for a couple months or something. I don't remember.
What's your
exactly.
first call? That's the first time you'd ever been fired, which is amazing. How
What
old
was
were
my
you?
First call. I was 30.
Okay, what's your first call?
31?
Wife?
I think it was my
Mother? Father? Dan?
It might have been
Billy?
my dad. No, it was either dad. I ended up talking to Mike and Dan like together. So who did I call first?
Such
I
a
honestly don't even
question.
remember.
That's a major thing to not remember.
I think it was my dad. I think I called my dad.
And so how long does it take to get that news out?
Well, that was a
Immediate.
whole nother thing.
When you
'Cause, like,
call your dad,
Dan gets on the phone with me and is like, "We're not doing this. Like, you're still going to be on the show. We want to unveil it." And then it became a thing of Dan's like, "I want to unveil you on the show on Monday," kind of like an FU to ESPN. Like he's
Not
still
kind
here,
of.
even though
That's what it
right,
was.
right. And I was just like, okay, now I started getting into the mode of I need
parents
to think,
using the kids.
I need to think about my career. Dan is going to now use me as like, and I was just like, 10 years from now, I might want to come back and work at ESPN. So and in hindsight, I was a little lame with this. Maybe you tell me I'm wrong. I ended up telling Dan, I'm good with us having any fun with this we want, but I would like to have a statement that I release that is just like, thank you, ESPN, for like the time or something. Like in my stupid
Release
mind,
where?
I
Did you
felt
buy an ad in the paper?
no, I just tweeted it out. It was one of my, it was like the tweet went crazy. It was like, that's where it became, I announced it that I was one of the ones, and I have never gotten, like, that's when articles started getting written about me, and I was getting,
People
like,
love a sad
everyone
story.
fell out of the sky of every person I had talked to at ESPN about how great I was. Like, it was like, it was a wild 12-hour span of, like, feeling like my whole life's over, and then feeling, oh my God, everyone loves me, and then like the audience got behind me, and so it was just like a whirlwind of emotion.
So if you were creating a bit, would you have created this where you get if the
Oh,
parents are divorcing anyway?
It was
then
good
you,
for
you
it was-
might as
dude,
well have an advantage.
kind of like the Zion thing I've said, that any pub is like when his shoe exploded, that's good pub. Like I like tripled my social media following. Like yes, to answer your question, like this was good for me just in terms of people knowing who I was.
So but how quickly did you have that epiphany? Because when you're let go, if you don't have a plan B, it can be horrifying. It can be scary.
Once I got the assurance from Dan, I was coming back, and I put that tweet out, and I just saw the love coming, like the people holding up the fork, like the pitchforks to ESPN, and everyone giving me the comments, all the people from ESPN in my DMs, like telling me how sorry and how great, and like that's the part where I was just like, is this good for me? Like,
So it didn't occur to you that they do that to everyone who gets let go.
But I'm telling you, yes. I'm just saying.
I'm
it
not
was
saying
so
that you didn't
overwhelming.
deserve it.
It was so overwhelming. Like, it was like hundreds of DMs. Like,
So it's not like you got fired then. It's as though you got reassigned.
right. That's what I mean. I was never like, I had like an hour where I was like, holy shit, I need to like figure something out. I mean, I still had my moment of panic. Like, I remember making a TD Ameritrade account because I was just like, I need to start working the stock market.
You're gonna day trade.
This was like,
That's
and this
what
was
you were
around the
gonna do?
and this was around the pandemic. So do you remember
Picturing
do you
Chris
remember
Cote.
in the pandemic, like the stock market was on fire. Like you couldn't lose.
Everybody was at home.
I was like, I made like thousands of dollars in like a month where I was just like, I'll just do this forever. This is easy.
This is easy.
I made $6,000 this month. Like I'll just do like, and like,
Were you into NFTs?
no, not really NFTs.
There were people who made money with those and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden lost it all.
It was just like day trading and stocks and, yeah, it was.
It's tough for the accountant.
And
when
then
you
I
do
was,
that.
yeah, and then I came back to earth with that, and I was like, okay, time to go back to work.
It's sort of like gambling.
It's couldn't be more like gambling.
So
Yeah.
people misunderstand that.
And I knew less about that than I had a better feel for who's going to win Bears Lions than I did,
Whether or not
what
GameStop was
Google's
going to keep going
tomorrow.
up.
Like,
It's funny how people view themselves as experts in areas.
I know.
And then invest in it and then are shocked when they lose all their
yes,
money.
Yes.
It's very strange to me.
You're just like, I'll just like watch this guy that's on it live on YouTube every day. He'll tell me what to do. I'm sure he's right about everything.
I was at Morgan Stanley prior to working in baseball. And we would take people and we'd take rich people and make them richer.
Yeah.
That's really all I did for a living.
What about like middle class people?
I didn't have any middle class people as clients. It was just
Right.
all rich people.
Right.
Now, there were people who got rich. So one of my favorite clients was literally a janitor at Microsoft. Who had about $35 million because they couldn't afford to pay him when he was first cleaning.
Yeah.
So they said, we have no money. We will give you stock instead. And he was like, fine, whatever. And he did a job on the side. And then he had $35 million worth of stock that he needed to diversify. So it's funny.
Yeah.
You can sometimes bet on something. You bet on yourself. You bet on a company. Sometimes you do it because you have no choice. But at the end of the day, so at Morgan Stanley, we would think to ourselves that we have no competitors because we're the professionals.
Right.
It's like how misinformed you can be thinking that just because we have a microphone that we're going to have an audience.
Right.
We have to earn that. We have to be good at what we do. And Dan and your show is one of the best in the country of what it does. And I can only try to get bigger every day with Coca that I do. We had that feeling at Morgan Stanley. And then all of a sudden, people started like saying, we don't need you. We're just going to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like people saying, I'll do a podcast. I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And then
You can't.
they come back. They're like, holy crikeys.
Man.
We just got our ass kicked.
Yeah. I just want to. You got any good penny stocks for me? That's where the money's at.
No,
My cousin
it's-
cost me like $5,000 on a penny stock.
That's Jordan Belfort's type stuff. Don't do that.
I know, but
You
I
lose
want
it
to
all.
get in, and then
That's
it goes
what
up to like
everyone
David. The
says.
idea is I get in when it's at 12 cents, and then it eventually gets to $17.
It is the most insane thing that people do. And they do it with sports. They do it with everybody. Can you imagine if we had done this then?
Yeah.
If we had only bought
I got
Apple
offered
then,
Uber.
or Bitcoin
I
or
got offered
Ugh.
Uber.
It's horse hockey
Yeah.
because it's the same for everything.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we had drafted blank in the first round instead of
Yeah.
the idiot we drafted who stunk? You can't live your life that way.
I just want to hit on one penny stock
Why?
because it'll make me a lot of money. I don't have to put a lot in. That's the whole point of this.
No, but you
On the big stocks, I got to put. If I want to buy Amazon right now, I got to put in like $10,000. If I get
it's
a penny
not
stock,
10 grand a share.
I know, but I'm saying if I want to get a lot of them, I'm saying
That's not how rates of return work, but
I
that's
don't know.
okay.
Yeah.
So you're here, you make the transition.
Yep.
You're working with your dad on a weekly basis.
Yep.
It bleeds into your personal life. It has to because I've been there. The question is that when you look at Dan and his show, and I've had this conversation with Dan, actually, where do you see your role and where do you see Dan's show? If I had to say, are you sitting here 3 years from now?
I hope so. I mean, I've always kind of said that I'm riding this thing out. Like, Dan has been the best to me. Like, I would never, like, leave. I don't want to say never. You know, if the money talks, am I right, David? But
Never say never. It's the worst word you could ever say.
I mean, but, like, I do feel, obviously, because of what we just talked about, like, I feel an insane amount of loyalty towards Dan. Like, it would take, like, like, if Barstool came over and was like, hey, I'll give you $10K, $20K more than you're making, I'm going to say no. Like, you know what I mean?
But for $100K,
Well,
$200K,
that's like now we're
you'd
talking.
be out
That's
the door.
and EJ is my lawyer. That's
You'd
right.
be
Then
out the
at that
door
point,
so
Dan
fast
would
it
be
would hit you
like.
in the
At that
ass.
point, Dan would be like, "Go ahead, you should do that." But yeah, I mean, obviously, I feel an insane amount of loyalty to Dan. But I see this show. You know, that would be a better. What you just asked is probably a better question for Dan and Stu. Like, I don't know. We haven't really gotten into how long they want to do this
No,
for.
but it's for you and how because it's hard what you do.
Yeah, I
and
mean-
doing it every day.
Yes.
and being creative. It's a blank slate every day that you are putting 4 hours.
4
into.
times a day, 4 episodes.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and it is stressful. Especially as I've gotten into this seat. Like, man, that back row. As we get to the back row, man, that was easy coming in those days. Like, I think back now, like what I'm doing on a daily basis now compared to like show prep 4 or 5 years ago, it's wild.
Well, you know the reason, because you're saying the word back row, but that's not the word for it. It's for if you're not driving the content or coming up with the creative and you're simply reacting, it's way less stressful. You have to be good.
Just be the wacky guy, bring a funny twist to this serious topic. I used to just sit there. They would do 10, 15 minutes of like good, interesting, funny, and then I would just like throw a little curveball. Like, what guys, you thought about this wacky scenario? And then it would be a funny thing, and like, but now it's like, what, do we have these videos right? Is the pictures, video? You got this, Lewis? You good with this? Like, my head is just like constantly spinning the entire show. But I'm getting more used to it. It was an adjustment. Like 6 or 7 months ago, I hated life. I'm back into enjoying the show again.
Hated life because of the increased responsibility and longing for the back row where you could just be like, brainless for 4 hours a day.
There was a few month period where I was dreading coming in every day just because I was adjusting. So I was just like uncomfortable. Like, you know how it is. Like now I'm already in this space 6 months later where it's just more comfortable now. Like I don't stress, you know, I used to stress like, are all the videos ready? Is Dan in a good mood today? Like you
don't feel that edge when the countdown starts?
But I think it's just like anything. It's just like anything. You do it 100 times and you're more comfortable than you were. So like, yeah, I mean, I still stress Dan. Is Dan enjoying this? Is this a good show? Like, yeah, I'm stressing all those things, but I'm not like dreading just the whole process. Whereas when it was all new to me, I was just like, I'm doing so much. Like, this is So
we've been doing show together for a very long time. I started working with Dan and doing the movie segment in 2004, maybe 2005. It was a long time ago. And you and I had not spent much time together at all off camera.
Yeah.
It had always just been on camera with the occasional text about, hey, you're on at 9:10 or 9:20. And lo and behold, a couple months ago, I am in Florida, and we ran into each other out, which you never came up to me at Broadway Bagels, so literally we had never run into each other before.
Yeah. I may have hit you with like, Dave Samson's a big fan, but you would have never remembered that. I don't remember if I did that. I was not a big
If you had said you were Greg Cote's son, I would have remembered that.
I probably
he was our mortal enemy.
I was going to say, I wouldn't have done that. I would have said I'm Dave Hyde's son, if anything.
He was worse. Cote and Hyde.
Yeah.
The bane of our existence. Those are two big-time columnists, one for the Herald, one for the Sun Sentinel.
If it makes you feel any better, my dad's still crushing the Marlins to this day.
So now I've just learned that that's what he does. So I'm not – if I'd only known then what I know now.
But hanging out with you was a delight.
I've always told people fun time.
Every time we talk, even off air in here, you get a bad rap. You're a great dude. You really are.
Thank you.
You're
it's
very
a character.
You're very kind. You're very thoughtful, and you're just a fun hang. Like I had a great time at OAR with you. I just think I tell people that all the time. I hope you know that David Samson is one of Stugatz, just like his character on air. Like that's the same guy. Where David, I feel like you are as big, like you're as different off air as anyone else. I feel like.
No, thank you. And it's one of the weird things about my time, because Nothing Personal is so different than what I do on Dan's show. Yeah. It's just a totally different show. And the Sporting Class with John Skipper's even another different character. And it does bother me sometimes that his container, and it was a sense of great frustration for Dan, that the people who he loved and trusted to make content with did not understand why he wanted to do any show with me.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to like warm up. Like there were even times like years ago when you would be on with us, and I would just be like, I don't agree with any of that. Like there was just something about you, like rubbed. Like I was like, I want to push back on this. But yeah, I don't know what it was. There was just.
It was the fact that we traded players,
and that was before that was before I really knew you though. Like that was like when you would just pop into the Zoom. Like that was when. So now I know you.
Was it even Zoom? I used to do it by telephone. There was no Zoom. There was no video.
But at this point, for like 4 or 5 years now, there has been. Oh, yes. So I'm thinking more like.
What year did you start?
I've been with Dan's show over like 10 years now, over 11 years.
So, but was it always video when you were part of it?
No.
Yeah, I started.
I'm talking about
Dan
more like
audio
at the Clevelander. I'm thinking those shows where I did see you when you and Mike would do those like pandemic shows.
We did a lot.
Even at
of
that
those.
time, like you would still rub me the wrong way. Like I'm picturing those times because you were on video.
Oh, that's
for those.
recent. Yeah, that's only. Wait a minute. You've had this view of me up until 4 years ago.
Yeah, like 4 years. We had never met really.
Come a long way then. It's very disappointing.
When's the first time we met in person? It was probably when you like put your middle finger up at Moss Miami or something.
Also, funny.
That was hilarious.
Because it totally got misrepresented.
You should have just crowd surfed after. That would have been the only thing.
I'm too scared to do that because...
Pickpocketing.
No.
People touching you.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
What could be worse than crowd surfing?
How's your uncle?
By the way, that doesn't even scare me as much as any sort of, hey, Dr. Rosen, using the whole fist stock. It's a Fletch reference.
Buy me dinner first.
Don't buy me dinner first. I don't even want any part of you. I do appreciate that you did this. We're out of time.
We're done?
Already.
This was fun.
I don't even know how that happens.
We'll do another episode. Bring me back.
I think we'd have to because I have like 4 things I wanted to talk exactly more about your future. And then all of a sudden it turns out to be done.
I can. Hey, my future. This is it.
No.
There's more?
There's always more.
Samson and Cote show
There's
down the
no
road?
Ceiling.
You never know?
I'm just saying there's no ceiling.
Thank you.
Don't worry about a ceiling. We'll do this again. Remember, that's Chris Cote. You can catch him in the chair every day. Dan Le Batard Show. It's just business. This is nothing personal.